Here we go.
No Return, the new roguelike mode included with The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, is a whole lot of fun, putting the combat mechanics of the base game to great use. It's also tough, with each difficulty in No Return presenting a greater challenge than the equivalent difficulty in the main campaign. There are a couple of reasons for this. One is that, unlike in the main game, you have to fight every encounter. There is no other side that if you can just get there, you no longer have to worry about the enemies. The combat is the point. And the other is that, although as a roguelike, survival is crucial since every run is permadeath, merely surviving doesn't guarantee a good score. So let's talk about what you need to do to beat it, to get good, and to get high scores. Let's start with the point system, because the game gives you points based on how you play, which determines your grade for the encounter and the run overall, and then combines that with multipliers based on difficulty and other factors to give you your total score. Completing the encounter gives you 100 points. In all encounters bar hunted, you get up to 100 points for time, losing 1 point for every 5 seconds it takes over 3 minutes. So in other words, an encounter taking 3 minutes and 4 seconds gets you 100 points, but 3 minutes and 5 seconds gets you 99, 3 minutes 10 gets you 98, and so on. For hunted encounters, because it only lasts a set time, you instead get 10 points for every enemy killed. In all encounters, you get up to 100 points for damage, with 1 point deducted for every 2 points of damage taken. This means that if you start with 100 health and die, you'll get 50 points still. But if you heal multiple times and lose 200 points of damage overall, then you will get 0 points, even if you survive. For Holdout encounters, you also get up to 100 points for how much health out of 100 your ally has at the end of the round. And in all encounters, your percentage accuracy will determine how many points you get for it. 100 points for not missing a shot or a throw, 40 points if you miss 60% of the time, etc. This includes bullets, but also throwables like bombs, however not bricks and bottles. Beyond those core points awards, there are several conditions for bonus points. You get an immediate 20 points for any encounter where you don't have an ally, and 20 points if the enemy starts in combat for an assault encounter. If you are doing a capture encounter, you get 50 points for capturing the safe in time. If the game presents you a gambit, this is where it may tell you to, for example, headshot kill an enemy, kill 3 enemies in quick succession, kill 1 enemy whilst another is your hostage, etc. You get 10 points for completing it. If you complete an encounter without using a gun, so if you only use melee or bombs, then you get 50 points. Alternatively, if you complete an encounter and every kill is a headshot, you get 30 points. And if you complete an encounter without being spotted by an enemy once, you get 50 points. Beyond that, you get 5 points for each time you stun an enemy, either by throwing a brick or bottle at them, or by shooting them below their knees, though it doesn't count if a more powerful gun blows their legs off. And 5 points for each melee kill, stealth kill, headshot, including headshots on grabbed enemies, and for each kill on a non-hostage enemy while holding a hostage. And you get 10 points if an attack kills 2 or more enemies at once, though if a bomb blows up 2 infected but one's front half keeps crawling for a while after, that doesn't count. All of this gives you your base score, with 300 to 349 earning a C, 350 to 399 earning a B, 400 to 449 earning an A, and anything above earning an S rank. Anything below 300 is a D. You would be hard pressed to get a D unless you died and failed the run. That score is then multiplied, based on difficulty, by up to 2.5 times for grounded, and based on any mods that are active, with mods that work in your favour lowering the multiplier, and mods that work against you raising it, to give you your overall points. If you're playing No Return, the first thing you need to do is make sure you're as familiar as you can be with the combat systems of The Last of Us Part 2. I cover a lot of the necessary mechanics in my beginner's guide video, so check that out if you're not familiar with stuns and strikes. Spatial awareness in loud combat is crucial. You need to not let enemies like clickers, shamblers and bloaters get too close. And stalkers and runners with their tendency to go for a grab and relatively long snap to distance are a danger up close if you're not the best at dodging. So practice both managing the space and knowing when to run. With human enemies, one of the first things you need to be aware of is who has a gun and who hasn't. The higher your difficulty, the sharper their aim, including being able to knock you down in the split second you peek above cover if aware of your position and pointing the gun at it. Get used to using cover to your advantage and working out which areas in each map provide the best cover, particularly if there's a spot where you can peek from the right rather than the left due to the camera positioning. If you can stun and kill them first, that's the best bet, and having both a brick or bottle to hand and another close by can be a lifesaver in some moments. If there's more than one, then grabbing a stunned enemy will give you time to aim at another enemy with a gun. Just be aware that unless you shoot them quick, a melee enemy who's too close to you and your hostage will take the opportunity to attack. The hostage will break free after a certain time, quicker if your gun is too long pointed at others instead of them, and if they don't break free, their friends will eventually shoot through them to reach you. Also be aware that in moments after you kill the hostage, their friends will try to shoot you. You're more vulnerable with a longer kill animation, and even dodging back to cover you may take a hit. A headshot and diving down may be the quickest escape, and even that isn't always a guarantee. The rattlers, specifically, are also armoured. This means it's harder to get headshots on those with helmets, except with bows, but also that Molotovs often won't kill them because of the extra health the body armour affords. This is the same with clickers that have body armour. You essentially cannot blow them up and must shoot or melee them. All of this is a lot of variables, maybes and acts of chance. Unfortunately, especially with humans and especially on grounded, that's part and parcel of the gameplay. So you will need to be weighing up your options, often relatively quickly, and staying aware of what damage you can take, what supplies you have, and where the enemies are, as well as how aware they are of your position. A final general tip, especially for humans, is to practice getting back into stealth when able. The enemy will be aware of your position when you flee for longer on higher difficulties, with the extreme example on grounded being that as long as you're sprinting, even without direct line of sight, they'll be able to follow. So if you're able to, it's worth stopping sprinting when out of sight, or keeping moving as far as you can from that position. The characters you can choose are broadly divided into Ellie types and Abby types, in terms of their available weapons and their abilities. For example, Ellie types all have a knife, and Abby types can upgrade to craft shivs to escape grabs. But their starter loadouts vary, and will in turn vary your approach, especially to initial encounters. Characters who start with a revolver instead of a pistol make it harder to get leg stuns on infected, so a pistol may be something you seek out from the weapons locker when you can. I would also suggest not buying too many guns, as it will mess with ammo drops. This will depend on what the weapons locker gives you, but pistol and shotgun are the best combo, with Abby's rifle more useful than Ellie's. Beyond that, pay attention to the strengths and weaknesses of each character, as they will affect how you approach encounters to a degree. The biggest obvious challenge is Joel and Tommy being unable to dodge. The apparent counter pair of resistance to melee doesn't actually mean anything in practice, so you do not want to get into a fist fight with either, and instead, if not using guns, go for stuns and strikes, and or two-handed melee weapons for quicker kills. Overall, Jessie is generally the most powerful character and the easiest to learn with. Let's dive into the encounter types. The basis of a hunted encounter is surviving for a set period of time as enemies continually spawn in up to a certain number. The max number of enemies that will spawn into the map and the amount of time you have to survive will increase the further along the run the encounter occurs, up to a cap of 4 or 6 depending on the map. And when you kill an enemy, they will be replaced by a new spawn up to the maximum amount. If you're new to it, Hunted is a very easy encounter to get overwhelmed in. Allowing a full roster of enemies to spawn in without killing any leaves you at strong risk of being surrounded and overwhelmed quickly. On the other hand, especially in Hunted with Infected, the possibility for high scores is very real. As already mentioned, you get 10 points per kill, on top of all the bonus points for stuns, melee kills, headshots, double kills, and so on. So especially on the last encounter and with the right map, this can lead to a very high total score before the multipliers even kick in. For Hunted by Infected, the general strategy is to place yourself somewhere central with room to move and react. Being able to kill enemies as they come in, ideally with a stun through a leg shot or bottle throw, followed by either a melee kill or a headshot. It's also worth practicing and getting used to headshotting clickers as they run at you. To break their faceplate for a stun, you can follow with a melee or a second headshot. If you don't have a long gun or a throwable handy, this will save you having to run away, which ironically will allow more infected to gather and make getting overwhelmed more likely. If you can, have Molotovs or pipe bombs on you, and save these ideally for the shamblers. This again will save you having to flee. And after a pipe bomb goes off, you can melee kill, or after a Molotov, a headshot or two will finish the job. Having trap mines and placing them at spawn points will give you room to breathe at the start and gain extra points, especially if they catch two at once. But if you plant a trap mine and it isn't detonated, be aware that will count against your accuracy. Not to mention, be aware of their placements to avoid blowing yourself up. With humans, it's better to find a position on the map you can camp with limited points of attack. Again, placing mines will give you some space, and in this instance, bombs or molotovs will allow you to get kills from farther away. The reason you want to stay in cover is specifically to avoid humans with guns, as they will shoot whilst you're in the middle of melee combat, and bombs allow you to control the numbers coming at you. Some maps are better than others for this, but because trying to use guns can often be more trouble than it's worth, having a melee weapon for when the humans get too close and the bombs for a distance makes it easier to get the 50 points for not using a gun. In earlier Hunted encounters too, the combination of good hiding spot, slow spawns and stealth kills of stunned enemies can sometimes lead to you not being spotted, and thus getting another 50 points. However you approach it, keeping cover, being able to take enemies out at a distance, and being able to kill close-up enemies quickly are a must. Finally, specifically with Rattler encounters, the location of chain clickers will alter their approach patterns, which you may be able to use to your advantage. However, be aware that a Molotov too close to a clicker will unchain it, and the likelihood is that it will be alerted on you rather than them in that instance. A Holdout encounter sees you having to defend an ally as infected enemies come at you. You will start in a central position, which as the name implies you must hold out in, as your ally will not leave that hub. Each map varies in the number of entries that are blocked, which is randomized each time. So how open or closed off the area is and how many ways enemies can come from is something you will have to react to as you start. Earlier encounters will throw fewer enemies and fewer more difficult enemies at you than later ones. The number of enemies remaining and the health of your ally are both shown on the HUD. If Holdout is the first or second encounter, you may get one clicker and a couple of stalkers among the runners. Later, the mix of runners, stalkers, clickers and shamblers is greater, with the chance of a bloater in the mix if it's the fourth or fifth encounter. The main thing you want to do is go into this encounter with as good a loadout as you can. You won't get points per kill as with Hunted, but treating it like a Hunted to a degree will help, though enemies focusing on your ally makes it easier for things to get chaotic, so it may be necessary to sacrifice higher points kills for mere survival. Make sure you're aware of your ally's location and listen for the alarm sounds if they get injured, as their health will go down fast. You especially want to kill shamblers before they reach your ally, as they will take additional damage from the acid. Be aware as well that some allies hold their own better than others. Lev and Yara are possibly the weakest to defend, with Tommy, Joel, Jesse and Manny being the strongest. Dina is somewhere in the middle, whilst Mel, Ellie and Abby don't make an appearance. Use mines to choke off open entrances where you can, especially any from where you can be flanked. Save your bombs for shamblers and the bloater, and where possible kill the infected before they reach inside. Assault throws 3 waves of enemies at you, in waves of 3 in the first encounter up to 7 in the 5th. These enemies may start in search, not knowing where you are, or in combat, knowing exactly where you are. In the latter case, you get 20 extra points by default, and the enemy will make an immediate beeline for you. With Infected, as they don't have guns, you don't have to worry too much about stealth. This can make it easier to get through the encounter quicker, because unlike Hunted, the entire wave spawns at once, you'll have 3 to 7 enemies coming at you at once. This makes it important to be aware of the space around you and avoid being too close to one enemy, especially a clicker, as you kill another. Beyond that, being aware of bottle, brick and melee weapon placement is crucial. If you're going for the 50 points for no guns, then using them to quickly get stuns and strikes is how you do that. If you are using guns, they will still complement your strategy. With humans, having cover is more important. How you approach them here depends on how many have guns versus how many have melee weapons. In earlier encounters, it's easier to do no guns than later ones because of the balance as well as the number of enemies in the wave. Alternatively, getting all headshots with humans plays into the strategy that's safer without the encounter taking so long you get no points for time. Stunning the nearest enemy as they reach your position, using them as a hostage, then getting a headshot on another enemy before headshotting your hostage will take practice. But that is one of the most effective ways to give yourself space to get back into cover, move to a new position, etc. It's also recommended if you can, especially in later encounters, to have throwables and explosives. Stun bombs in particular are useful for points, and where there's a lack of bottles. Trap mines, molotovs and pipe bombs won't give you the points for stuns or unique kills, but if you're simply going for survival, then they make human encounters a lot more straightforward. Key to either approach is knowing a good, defensible position for each map. On Forest, for example, the car in the parking garage that you have to climb up a van on the left to reach is a good spot whether enemies come from the upper floors or from the forest, as it gives you limited points of entry and minimises the risk of flanking from behind. There are similar spots on most maps, and will make human assault seem a lot less insurmountable. Capture is, in effect, a single round of human assault, except that the enemy will start grouped around the safe, so you have to go to them rather than the other way around. Time is also the primary factor, not just for capturing the safe, which brings extra points as well as extra parts and pills for upgrades. If there are 30 seconds or more left on the timer for the safe, then you will get its contents without having to manually open it. Otherwise, make sure to go up to it and press triangle when it's been captured. The safe and enemies will spawn randomly on each map, though your positioning will influence that. For each map, it's worth learning through multiple playthroughs the possible spawn points and how to make them most likely, as well as what you prefer. Of the spawned enemies, one will stay by the safe at all times, but the rest can and will push. If you have an Abby type character, i.e. one with pipe bombs instead of molotovs, then capture is easier. The ideal strat is to have enough throwable bombs to take out all of the enemies bar the one guarding the safe, and to do so quickly. With the Rattlers, this is only really doable with pipe bombs, whereas with the WLF or Seraphites, molotovs can work, but it's less sure than pipe bombs. Depending on the map, quickly placing trap mines in strategic places can also take out any that push on you. With the rest dealt with, ideally in plenty of time for the safe, then it's simply a case of sneaking up to the last enemy to stun and melee kill them. No guns is the ideal strategy here. If bombing the enemies isn't possible due to resources or you having molotovs and it being Rattlers, then stun bombs and melee kills are a possible alternative. Just be sure to have safe routes of retreat to cover, and again, use trap mines strategically where possible. Lastly, talking about the mods. The best way to approach them is to practice encounters with the mods and get used to them, and to where your strategies need adjusting to accommodate them. Negative mods such as enemies dropping bombs on death can work in your favour, as it will with humans see them keep a bit of distance from each other, and with infected very often leads to collateral damage of other enemies, which can be helpful. Increased enemy speed can take some getting used to, and more running away or dodging than usual. With increased enemy health, if you're going for stuns and headshots, or stuns and strikes, then it shouldn't make a difference with infected. With humans, it can make some strats harder to pull off depending on the circumstances, but bombs and headshots should be reliable still. Possibly the one most people are intimidated by is the invisible enemies mod. This only applies to infected, so there's no risk of being shot, but it is still tough. You can see enemy shadows if you have your flashlight on, and it's better in the lighting of some maps than others. The lock-on throw for bricks, bottles and bombs will also allow you to locate incoming enemies to stun and strike. If you have enough melee weapons and throwables, it can make an encounter with invisible enemies a lot easier than it would seem. Ultimately, with time and practice, you'll find strats and a rhythm that you're comfortable with. This applies both to the mods and to the encounters in general, as well as to the differences between each character. As you get more adept with the mode, you'll find it easier to take on these various challenges, and likely feel more at ease taking bigger risks that could lead to a quick end, or could pay off in terms of points. Despite how long this video is, because of the need to go through each aspect of the game, these tips are just the beginning and a base to build from. But hopefully it's a starting point on a road that leads to high scores. If you enjoyed this video, then give it a like and consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. Like the video that's just popped up, which YouTube thinks you should watch next. This is a Patreon and member supported channel, so if you want to become a member and unlock custom badges and emojis, early access to my videos, and your name in the credits, then click the join button below. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.